On today's video, I'll be doing a review and test video on this case, which is the Antec NX410 mid-tower ATX case, which you see right here, this case right here, with red LEDs. And in the back, we have another rear, I think it's a 140mm fan. These are the buttons for it. On the side there's a magnetic I think panel which you could just open like a door. That's a power button. That's a LED button, however I took the reset button and put it here, so now this is for reset. But if you want to use the LED thing, you can, which is by default. And comes with an audio jack and microphone audio jack and a 3.5mm headphone jack and two USB, I think these are USB 2.0s, and this is USB 3 or 3.1 port. As you can see, there are no 5 1/4 inch or 3.5 inch bays here. This is a completely modern design. The case that I used before was, I think the case was from 2009. It was quite antiquated, and I was having some issues with heating issues. This is an i7 13700KF processor in here, and there's about, right now I have 4 M.2 NVMe devices, which also generate heat, and a 2.5 inch SSD as well, 500 GB. So I'll be doing some test videos on this, and as you can see, there's a mesh at the top. The mesh is perfectly removable. You can remove it like get it off. It just comes off like that. You could put two 140mm fans on top, or you could put two 120mm fans on the top as well, getting the air out of the case like this. So now I'm going to go into my computer and I'll show you the performance and internal parts of this case as well. Okay, so this is the interior of the case. As you can see, there are no 5 1/4 inch drive bays like the old type of case. As you can see here, there are no 3.5 inch drive bays as well, like a old ATX computer case. This design was popular from, I guess we could say, the 1990s to today. Not today, but maybe around 2015 or 2016. I have an Antec 300 case as well, and an Antec 301 case, and the format of the case is exactly like a classic ATX case. I think the first ATX cases came out back in 1998 or something like that. I remember getting my first ATX case, and before that they had something called the AT case, and that was before 1998. So this ATX case design has been with us for almost 26 years, but it has changed a lot since then. So this classic design was from 1998 to, I guess, 2015 or 2016. This type of design where you have 5 1/4 inch bays, 3.5 inch bays. You even had a floppy disk bay as well, but the 3.5 is mostly for 3.5-inch hard drives, and the 5.25-inch bays are for optical discs, which doesn't exist in this Antec NX410 mid-tower ATX case. There are no optical discs, so as a result, this type of case is, I would say, it's shorter in terms of length. However, this case is a little bit wider than a standard ATX case, and this case is taller as well. That's why I could accommodate two 140mm fans, which it came with. And this case does have a 3.5-inch bay, but as you can see, there's just one here. That's all you got. And the ATX power supply is at the bottom, as you can see, which I think is a lot better. This is kind of like my Corsair C70 case, which has the power supply at the bottom with this barrier right here, and you could route the cables through here, through this hole, and put it onto your motherboard. As you can see, there's plenty of cutouts you can use to route the cables, which makes cable management a lot more cleaner than a standard ATX case. You could put a number of 2.5-inch SSDs. As you can see, you could put one in the back. You could put two in the top part here. I only put one, which is right here, with a 3.5-inch 2.5-inch adapter, and I routed my SATA power through here, and SATA data cable through here as well, through this hole. And this case is keeps your computer a lot cooler because there's less cables like obstructing the airflow. Right now I didn't add any more fans to this. I just kept it like this with what it came with, and the temperature is just fine for my observations. And this type of case design is more modern, and it keeps my computer a lot cooler. This antiquated design, not so good. And over the years there has been like some changes as well. What the case designer did was they put the power supply on the bottom, and what they did was they enabled you to put fans on the top, like here, like that, which made these cases more viable. And instead of having one 120mm fan, they enabled you to put two, which kept this design viable, like my Antec 300 case did, basically. But I like this design better because there's really no need for 5.5-inch bays right now, because very few people use optical drives for anything, and 3.5-inch is kind of like obsolete, because on my motherboard there are 3 M.2 NVMe slots on the motherboard itself, and there's one extra PCIe X16. It's a PCIe 4.0 X16 slot on my motherboard, which I use to put another M.2 NVMe via a PCIe M.2 NVMe adapter, which I use to do that. So I have 5 SSDs in here. In my case, I have 2.5 inch SSD, and I have 4 M.2 NVMe SSDs on the motherboard itself, so which is pretty adequate. For this case, you do need a more modern motherboard because it uses the, I think I'm not sure what it's called. Let me see. The RGB connector for motherboard. I think this is it. It uses this more modern type of RGB connector. My motherboard has 2 such connectors, but with this case, everything is kind of like daisy chained. Let me show you. Yeah, everything's daisy chained into one connector, so you could just connect that one cable onto your motherboard. So as you can see, it's all the 4 cables are daisy chained like that, and which is a pretty good thing. And let's look at the temperature of my computer right now. GPU temperature is 124 degrees Fahrenheit, and the CPU is at about 90 to 97 degrees. I guess some parts higher. Yeah, about 90 to 97 degrees Fahrenheit. This is a pretty hot CPU. It runs, this is an i7 13700 KF, so it does run hot. And this is from my old ATX case, which I replaced. Oops. As you can see, this is in the hundreds. So it's a little bit hotter, the old case. But when the big difference is when I run more intensive programs like 3D programs like games and stuff like that. That's where I kind of like see a lot of the major temperature differences. And let's check what my M.2 NVMe temps are on with this case. C drive 40 degrees, M.2 NVMe. D drive, M.2 NVMe, 36 degrees Celsius. E drive is my Hynix 2.5 inch SSD, 28 degrees Celsius. This is another M.2 NVMe at 34 degrees Celsius. This one is being run right now because it has my operating system on it. G drive, that's another M.2 NVMe, 32 degrees C. This one is my hard drive via USB 3.0 with a hard drive dock, 37 degrees C. That doesn't count. Whatever's in here counts. The temperature is pretty low now, but I'm also using a fan for my M.2 NVMe devices. So that's why I guess that's why it's pretty cool right now. So I'm gonna run a game, and we're gonna check the temperature. Okay. Okay, so now I'll be running Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate, and I'll show you the settings that I'm using. It's all on very high. It's on high settings. I'll be running it for a couple of minutes and we'll see what the temperatures are.
Hello. I I'm Arif Iqbal, and you're watching WNS News.
Top right corner, you see the FPS or frames per second, and you can also see temperature of my GPU as well. But my CPU temperature doesn't show up here, but I'll show you that later.
Don't worry, I'll survive. It's been worse. 6 months ago. Then it's all downhill.
Okay, now let's look at the results. GPU ran about 167 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's check the CPU temperatures. Anywhere from 170 to 200. So about 190, I would say, 190 degrees Fahrenheit. That's pretty hot, but you have to understand that I was also recording this video while I was doing it, so it did make the CPU work a lot harder. So this is not too bad. Now the temperature is going down. I'm not playing a game, but it did run at about 195 degrees Fahrenheit on the average. So that's pretty hot, but you know, Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate is a pretty demanding game, and driving scenes are very taxing on your computer's GPU and CPU. So take that in mind. I'm also going to test War Thunder on high settings, and I'll show you what the temperatures are there. But I'm not going to be recording it while I'm doing it, but I'll show you what it is next. So I ran War Thunder on maximum for about 10 minutes, and these are the results that I got. It's about 167 at the highest peak for my graphics card. As for my CPU, around 142 or something on the average, which is not bad at all. So this case keeps my computer pretty cool. The two 140 millimeter fans that are in the front and the 120 millimeter fan at the rear is adequate enough to cool my computer and all the components in it, like the graphics card, the 5 SSDs, and everything else, the motherboard, and pretty much everything. So at the top, I have vents at the top, and hot air always flows upward, right? So I guess some of the hot air is going up, and a lot of it is being ejected out the back through the rear exhaust fan, and a lot of air is being drawn in from the front with the 140 millimeters. And when I feel the case, it's not very hot like the other case that I had before, the classic ATX case I was using before. When I felt the case, it got pretty hot, the metal part, but this one is not so hot. So it's a pretty good case for the money. The case wasn't very expensive. It's a pretty simple design, which I like about it. And overall, I thought it was a good case. If you're interested in getting one yourself, I'll leave it in the video descriptions below. But however, you do need a more modern motherboard to use it, because it has the RGB 4-pin connectors, which is available on mostly more modern motherboards. My other motherboard, which is an Asus Prime M470 or 470M, that doesn't have a RGB connector to it, and I bought that computer in 2021. This was about 3 years ago, and that computer doesn't have it. So I guess the more modern computers have such connectors, and you would need that if you want to use a modern RGB fan. However, if you are just using regular fans, 4-pin fans, then it's perfectly fine. So anyways, thank you for watching.